With the 2025 NFL Draft now in the books, we gave you guys our draft grades for your Buffalo Bills, but it's time to react to Mel Kiper's. Yes, the ESPN NFL Draft guru decided to throw out his grades for all 32 NFL teams, so we're going to dive into what he had to say about the Bills selections in 2025. But before we dive into all of what Mel had to say, make it known for me on this video. If you think Brandon Beane crushed the 2025 NFL Draft for the Bills, let me know by liking today's video. Smash that thumbs up icon if you think the Bills absolutely knocked it out of the park in this draft. Mel didn't exactly think that they knocked it out of the park, but he didn't think that they did too bad. He ended up giving them an overall grade of a B-, which is right in the middle of the pack for their all 32 NFL teams. The only team that he gave an A+ to was the Cleveland Browns, and I'm sure everybody knows why that is. But let's start with this from Mel about the first-round selection for Buffalo. He said one spot they had to address was cornerback. Though opponents completed 68.5% of their passes against Buffalo, 5th highest in the league, and converted 43.8% of their third down attempts, 4th highest last season. The Bills lost Rasul Douglas, traded Kaiir Elam, and really only addressed the position by signing Dane Jackson. That's why taking Maxwell Hairston in the first round made a ton of sense. He'll bring 4.28 speed and good ball skills to the Bills defense. We know Maxwell Hairston has good ball skills, and we know about his blazing speed, and we know that Brandon Beane wanted to add speed to the Buffalo Bills this offseason, whether it be at a position like wide receiver or at corner where they needed a definite starter at CB2, and I think Harrison's going to be able to do that. The Bills made it a point to upgrade the secondary this offseason, and yes, they didn't make any out-of-the-park, big swing moves, signing guys to $20 million contracts aside from what they did with Christian Benford, giving him a major deal, but they bring in a guy like Trey White to be that veteran mentor to Maxwell Hairston, who I have slotted in as that CB2 on the boundary opposite Christian Benford. And then you bring in Dane Jackson, who at this point now is a really solid addition as a depth cornerback piece. And then you bring in Dorian Strong there on day 3 of the draft for some depth as well, which now this cornerback room looks really, really solid, and I'm really excited to see what Hairston can provide to this team. And then if you move over to safety, yeah, the Bills didn't address it too heavily in this draft, but at the end of the day, you feel confident in this group. I think Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop are going to be very, very key for what the Bills have going on this season. Now, to be fair, there are injury concerns with this room, and maybe down the line, the Bills could address an upgrade in this spot. But overall, I think the secondary is improved. Now, to be fair, I did have Trey Amos ranked ahead of Maxwell Hairston as far as the corners on my board for Buffalo. I thought that the skill set that he might provide and the drop-off in speed and size was not too big for me. Meanwhile, Harrison's smaller than Trey Amos. But I'm very, very happy with the pick overall. He's going to be able to stick on some of the best receivers in this league, and you already have Christian Benford there as your number 1 CB. A little bit of pressure is going to be taken off Hairston here, and I think he's going to have a big, big career with the Buffalo Bills. But are you happy with the Maxwell Hairston pick? Let me know. Be honest for me, Bills Mafia, down in the comment section. Is there somebody else you wanted over Hairston with the 30th overall selection? Type Y for yes and type N for no on if you're happy with the Hairston pick for Buffalo or not. More from Mel here about the Bills' day 2 selections. He said the other 2 main needs were defensive tackle and receiver. The Bills checked the first box when they took TJ Sanders on day 2. It was a reach. Sanders was 126th on my board, and the Bills traded up to get him. But they had 8 sacks from inside last season, 3rd fewest in the league, and that's Sanders' specialty. He continuously gets pressure. Sanders should fit right in next to Ed Oliver. And it's clear to me that if Mel had a guy ranked 128 and the Bills go up and select him at 41, clearly Brandon Beane and the front office were very high on TJ Sanders. And what I've learned over the past couple of seasons is not to doubt Brandon Beane and his draft evaluators when it comes to day 2 and day 3 of the draft. He continuously finds diamonds in the rough and day 1 starters and guys who have contributed over a long period of time on day 2 and on day 3. So if they think that TJ Sanders is the guy, then I'm totally fine with the pick. Plus, they addressed a true run-stopping defensive tackle a little bit later in the draft, and Mel had this to say about it. He said 3rd-round edge rusher Landon Jackson and 4th-round defensive tackle Deone Walker will contribute on the D-line too. They both have pass rush upside, but I think the run defense traits might be even more important for them. Jackson sets a hard edge, and Walker fills a gap at 6'7" and 331 pounds. Buffalo allowed 4.5 yards per carry last season, for a pretty mediocre 19th in the NFL. And honestly, as far as value goes, Landon Jackson and Deone Walker were my 2 favorite picks of the entire draft for Buffalo. Landon Jackson was a guy who a lot of people think could have went a lot earlier in round 2. And Deone Walker is a guy who people peg to be a day 2 draft selection. He falls all the way to round 4, and I think Buffalo got 2 fantastic values on these players. And now the defensive line looks less like a unit that needs addressing and holes to be filled, and more like a unit with depth and strength at multiple positions. This front 4 right here, I mean, if we want to follow what the Philadelphia Eagles did in sending 4 and not blitzing and getting to opposing quarterbacks, then this is the way to do it. Plus, now you have depth with Daquan Jones heading to the bench. You have Deone Walker there, and I had to slot him in the 3rd string. I have no idea what this Bills defensive depth chart is going to look like day 1. You got Landon Jackson over there as a 3rd stringer behind A.J. Epinesa. So, this is a unit of strength now for Buffalo, and I cannot wait to see how the defense and Bobby Babich kind of mix and match these guys and decide who gets in different snap counts, when and where. So I'm excited, man. TJ Sanders, he's going to be wrecking opposing backfields for years to come. But who's your guy? I talked about Landon Jackson, Deone Walker being my kind of 2 favorite value picks for the Bills in this draft. Who is your favorite pick that the Buffalo Bills made in 2025? Let me know who your guy is down in the comments section out of this Bills draft class. All right, a little bit more here from Mel about the Bills' day 3 draft haul. He says not taking a receiver until number 240 with Caden Prafter was curious. The Bills' first 5 picks went to defense. Only the 2nd time in the common draft era that they've done so, rather than 2006. Chase Lunt is a depth right tackle, and Jackson Howes is a blocking tight end. While Buffalo walked away from the draft with some defensive upgrades, quarterback Josh Allen didn't improve this month, or his unit didn't improve this month. Buffalo could regret not doing more there. And I guess this is why Mel dropped the Bills all the way to a B-, because they didn't address weapons for Josh super early and often in this draft. But, man, on day 3, you're kind of throwing darts, and you don't necessarily know who is going to be, a slam dunk pick. We have our faith in Beane finding a diamond in the rough or 2 in the later rounds. But at the end of the day, not all of those guys are going to be hits. And to be honest, the Bills did make an investment at wide receiver this offseason. They bring in Josh Palmer for $12 million a season, and they let go of Amari Cooper, who really didn't do all too much for Buffalo. And the Bills put up a ton of points with this receiving core last year, just swapping out Cooper for Palmer. I think this is going to be an improved unit this year. There's no reason to believe that Keon Coleman shouldn't take a step in year 2. Khalil Shakir gets paid and should continue to produce at the level that he's gotten to. And then Josh Palmer, you give him a bunch of money. I think he's going to be a featured player in this Bills receiving room this year. And Brandon Beane actually ended up addressing this, kind of happening in this reality for Buffalo, not taking a receiver or a weapon early on. He actually ended up calling into WGR 550 earlier today and sounded off on the 2 hosts that were talking about it, talking about how they bitched about Josh Allen being picked in 2018 when they wanted Josh Rosen, and they're bitching about not taking a receiver now. Well, then Beane talked about how, the Bills has scored their most points ever as a franchise in 2024. We're the highest scoring team in the entire league, including the playoffs and including the Super Bowl champion Eagles. So clearly Buffalo, what their issue was they weren't able to get stops. And I'm not sure why Mel ended up giving a B- grade when he had said in his mock drafts leading up to the 2025 draft that Buffalo needed to start finding ways to get stops and finding ways to limit opponents' passing attacks. And obviously their rushing attacks as well, as they were one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. Clearly that was the need for Buffalo, and clearly that's what they wanted to address in this draft. So they went that way, and I think the Bills straight up crushed it, man. I don't agree with Mel Kiper's draft assessment whatsoever with these Bills. The defense is much improved, and the offense is going to do what it did in 2024. I don't doubt that as long as 17 is behind center. But that'll do it for today's edition of the Bills Breakdown by Chat Sports. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, youtube.com/BillsNews, for daily Buffalo Bills content right here on YouTube. So go down below, hit that big red sub button. We'll see you guys all in the next one. And as always, go Bills.